Going live. I'm just checking Facebook and
Man, I'm gonna go outside. Let me see how much I got on my computer. How much energy?
why?
Cause I like outside. It's nice out here. We don't get these type of weather, this weather in Missouri that much. You in Houston, y'all get this all the time.
We live.
All right, then we live.
You can go outside when we
I'm
finish.
trying to see if my computer got enough energy. Yeah, it just got dim
So
when I did.
we alive, Mataka. We
All
live.
right, all right. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right. So welcome. I see that we're live on Facebook. Let me just check LinkedIn. We are live on LinkedIn. Just checking YouTube. Somebody told me the other day I need to go onto YouTube. So I it says upcoming. So I guess it's going to be coming on. But come on in the room. Come on in the room. Whenever you come in the room, let us know where you're joining us from. And if you don't mind, just share this. Share this because this is some information that I think everybody needs. It's not just for the wife. It's not just for the girlfriend, the fiance. It's for the mother. It's for the father. It's for everybody. So when you come in,
Let me mute. I'm muting myself.
I ask that you share this out, and also if you're on Facebook, whatever platform you on, I ask that you just go ahead and like us. The like is not for me, it's not for Mr. Williams, it's not for Mataka. It's so that this live, the algorithm of Facebook can just share it out. So I ask you guys just like, and share. Every day there is someone coming home from prison. And every day there is someone going to prison. And it just dawned on me last week, or I think last week, 2 weeks ago, that, there's some new members in the group, there's some new followers in the group, and they still they don't have the knowledge of an understanding of post-incarceration syndrome. I did a post, and that post was shared numerous times on my LinkedIn page. And I was like, man, we need to have this conversation again. So, hey, Yvonne, hey, Barbara, hey, Chief Tess. So you guys come on in. Watching from Illinois, okay, watching from Baltimore. Barbara's from Baltimore. Okay, yeah, so you guys come on in. And I said, man, it's time for us to go back to the basics. Post-incarceration syndrome 101.
Yes, ma'am.
101, because again, a lot of people do not understand, and I'm steady getting DMs from family members, they're in such a bad place because they don't understand their loved one's behavior. And so I called Mataka. Mataka is my rider. And I called Mr. Williams at the last minute. I think this morning I sent Mr. Williams a text. Every morning he sends a good morning. And I asked him to jump on the live. So we're just going to kind of go back to the basics, explain what post-incarceration syndrome is, the symptoms, and the behaviors, so that when you see this, you can recognize this, and it's not to say, oh yeah, you've been to prison and you got you institutionalized, or you've been to prison and you got this social sensory deprivation, and no, that's not what it's for. It's for so that you can be aware. And as I said earlier, we got to stop keeping this information to ourselves. We got to share this information with our loved ones. You guys will be surprised at the number of messages I get from formerly incarcerated individuals saying, thank you, keep sharing it, keep talking about this, sis, keep talking about this, sis, because so they are aware. They are aware that there's something wrong. And like one gentleman said, he said, I knew in the back of my mind something was wrong, but he didn't know that there was a name for it. So this is what we're going to be talking about tonight. Hey, Aaron. So this is what we're going to be talking about tonight. Again, I ask you guys to share. Everybody knows somebody in prison. All these prison wives groups out here, I know you guys know somebody. Just ask them to come over and join the conversation. And what I see is when system impacted individuals are going through this, they tend to suffer in silence because they don't think nobody knows, or they don't want, or they feel bad, or they think, oh, it's just me. No, it's not just you. And then when they're going through what they're going through, and we as family members don't understand, then that causes us to walk on eggshells because we don't want to say nothing to them because they're going to go off. And so, you know, for days. And another thing is that I thought about it, and as I wrote it in my book, you know, I Miss Google this, Miss Google that, Miss Research this. But when Kevin told me that he had been in prison for 28 years, I didn't say, what does this look like? Let me see what this looks like. And every day we were on the phone when I was in, hey, Tosca, look, why aren't you in the room?
Let her in.
Send her the link if she's available.
I'm going to send you this link, Miss Tolson.
Okay. So every day when Kevin used to, when I was in Afghanistan, when he and I reconnected, every day when he called me, I would have a list of questions. I hadn't seen his brother in 38 years. And we were talking about marriage. So every day I had a list of questions. What is this? What do you like? Da, 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 da. But there was one question I did not ask. I did not ask, how did prison affect you? I mean, y'all, I had pages and pages and pages of questions that I would ask him every day because we talking marriage. So, okay, I need to know, you going to cook or you expect me to cook? You know, whatever. But I did not ask him, how did prison affect you? That's one question I did not ask. And I eventually had to find out the hard way. And Kevin and I found out together. He had no clue. He had no idea. And I remember when he and I first got together, his mom had mentioned some stuff, some behaviors. And I had never seen that. And I was like, because Kevin been in prison twice, right? So she was telling me about some behaviors. And I said, when you went to prison the first time, I said, because that ain't my husband. She said, no, this time. Right? So when he and I got together, he was on this high. I was on this high. So everything was glorious. Right? But then things start to happen. So this is why we have this conversation. This is why we have this conversation. And let me tell you something, it ain't popular. And I ain't gonna say pee. I start to say piss me off. But you know, it's not popular, right? And I'm like, why aren't more people talking about this? And when it hit my house and I couldn't believe it, I said, why ain't nobody talking about how these people coming home from prison? Why isn't anybody talking about this? So this is what we're going to be talking about. We're going back to basics, post-incarceration syndrome 101, what it is, the symptoms and the behaviors. And then Mataka. So when I spoke with Hope for Prisoners last Tuesday, right? And so at the end, and this was a huge stage for me. They were streaming to the Department of Corrections in Nevada. They were streaming in the prisons. They were streaming in the detention centers, also in the jail. So this was huge, right? So in the end, when they had Q&A, I'll never forget, there's two questions that just kind of plagued me every day. And I'm like, you know what? I got to do something. One of the questions was from a gentleman named Nick. And Nick said, how can we get our family members to understand us? How can we get, and I was like, wow, you know, of course I said, hey, it starts with awareness. It starts with awareness. And then we got to keep having this conversation. Family members got to come to the table too. Family members got to come to tables too. And then there was one brother, oh my God. He came up, he said, I've been in the system since I was 16. And he reminded me of you, Mr. Williams. He said, I've been in the system since I was 16. He said, I did 17 years. He said, what's the solution to this post-incarceration syndrome? He said, what's the solution? He said, He said, I'm trying and I'm trying. And he had a sense of hopelessness. He said, I'm trying. He said, and some days he said, I just want to say F it. He said, what's the solution? He said, I've been to a therapist, you know. And so we're going to talk about all of that too. But without further ado, I'm going to go around the room. And Mataka, many of you know Mataka. Mataka been riding with me a long time. And then Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams is an OG. And I call him an OG because he did a whole bunch of time, And whenever I have a question about something, I got a nephew who's down doing 14 years. And, you know, if he called me with some whatever, I go to Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams, what's it sound like? What's it sound like? And Mr. Williams,
he your interpreter.
Yeah, he the interpreter. Mr. Williams would tell me, nah, that sounds like some game, da 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 da. So I got an OG in the house, you know, and you guys will be able to ask your questions. Ask y'all questions. Ask you questions.
Hard questions. Questions that ain't popular.
Yeah, because I guarantee you there's somebody else who has the same questions, but they may not want to answer. And the thing about this post-incarceration syndrome, y'all, let me tell y'all something. Same behavior, different zip code. When somebody called me or hit me up, it's the same behavior.
Yeah.
Different state. And even in different countries. When I had the opportunity to speak on the platform in Australia and London, different country, same behavior. So you guys need to know these behavior. And then when I'm honored, when I spoke in Florida, there was a lady there from Alaska. And we just signed the contract, everything good. In September, I'll be going to Alaska to talk about post-incarceration syndrome. And somebody told me one time, my content was raw. You ain't seen raw. Re-entry is raw.
This ain't nothing you sugarcoat right here. This got to be raw.
Yeah, because a lot of times, guys, you can admit it. When you see, you know, these posts, and you look, we applaud those who are out doing the thing. But I believe that the reason many of them keep silent because they're not doing the thing and they don't want to talk about their struggle. So we shouldn't all just be talking about doing the thing. Okay, let's talk about the struggle and then let's help the others so they can do the dang thing too. So anyway, y'all know I can go on. Mataka, tell the people about you.
My name is Mataka Askari. I'm a certified peer specialist. That's a person who works with people who struggle with substance use disorder, mental health, co-occurring disorders, re-entry. I facilitate. I'm in the process of getting my credential. I am facilitating domestic violence battery intervention classes under Tosca Tolson. I grew up in St. Louis, come up in them communities you hear about in the 80s and 90s. I've been involved in crime since I was like 10 years old. So grew up in that influence. In February 1995, I started serving a 30-year sentence. I ended up doing 23 and a half years. So while I was in prison, I recognized that I had been struggling with a few things prior to coming to prison. And so the incident happened. I was sitting in the old walls in Jefferson City, Missouri. They used to call it the bloodiest 47 acres in America. That was one of his reputations. Terrible prison. So I'm just getting here, and so these are not doors. These are bars. This prison was built in like before slavery ended. Wow. So I'm hearing I'm fresh. And so, you know, with this fresh 30-year sentence, my mind is going crazy. I'm in a state of depression. So I'm hearing these guys screaming and hollering all night long. And I'm saying to myself, Lord, I hope I ain't like that when I get their age. And so the automatic, why am I even here? You're here because you put yourself in a position to be judged. Why? Because your behavior. Well, why was I behaving like that? Because you were thinking a certain way. Well, why were you thinking like that? You took some wrong information in somewhere. That was my process of walking it back so I could start the process of transformation. And so what happened was I realized that I had needed new information. So I started to seek out information. One of the guys who was responsible in grooming me brought me the autobiography of Malcolm X. It changed my life. I started to be aware of some things that I had been taught that were wrong, that had made me embrace and internalize unhealthy images and ideas about myself. So when I was in the, and then I want to just let you know that post-incarceration syndrome is one form of trauma. A lot of us lived in normalized communities where trauma is normalized, and that makes us more susceptible to post-incarceration syndrome when we go into the prison. So we going in vulnerable right out the door. I didn't know that at the time. I went in on a different mission trying to transform my consciousness. 23 and a half years, studied a lot, did a lot of stuff. Would like to think that I impacted the lives of a lot of people in a good way. I come home August 24th, 2018. So at first, I don't even realize what's going on. I just know I feel like I'm paranoid all the time. Why am I paranoid all the time? Right. And then when I go, man, this is crazy. I just want to share this with y'all, right, to show you how institutionalization works. And it's so routine based and you become unconscious to it. The day I got out of prison, we went and ate at my daughter's grandmom's restaurant. And so in prison, you have to wear your ID on your left shoulder collar. So I'm out here eating. I got my prison ID. It's on my shirt. No, listen, I'm free.
What? Wait a minute, Mataka. You got your prison ID.
It's on my shirt like I'm on the yard and the CO's tripping. So I asked, so I'm talking, so my daughter's mom was like, what is that? I said, oh, this is my prison ID. She said, you got to wear that out here? I said, wow.
Wow.
That's one incident. The other incident that really made, and so I noticed that I wasn't really sleeping. I would get up a lot at night, and so in a prison cell, it's small, it's closed in. You can see everything, hear everything, smell everything, and so the door is closed, so you got a level of security, so you can sleep at least with a degree of comfort because you're familiar with your environment and you know that certain sounds, you can protect yourself. Well, I'm in the bed and I'm hearing stuff in the kitchen. I can't see around no corners. So now, because I'm hearing these sounds that houses make and refrigerate, I don't know none of these sounds. I've been gone for a quarter of a century. Wow. I'm up all hours of the night, constantly checking doors. So I got this. So I didn't realize what the paranoia was. So we at the movie theater. It was Tiffany Haddish and Kevin Hart had the movie Night School. So my daughter's mom, she want to sit in the middle row. My spider sense going crazy, but I'm trying to appear normal. Okay, I'm unsafe. I'm not near an exit. I'm in the middle. I'm in an unfamiliar territory, unfamiliar space. And so in prison, as well as the streets, the first order of the day is safety and security, right? You have to be safe and secure. So I'm in here and I'm not feeling safe. So I'm scanning around looking for danger. I see these guys over here. They got hoodies on. Now it's the summer. Why they got these hoodies on? So now we into the movie and I cannot stop. I'm constantly looking around. I'm looking at them. So they laughing, enjoying the movie. So I can't take it. I turn to my daughter's mom. I'm like, listen, I don't know what's going on. It might be getting ready to be a theater shoot. And these guys got these hoodies on up here. It's the summer. Why they got the hoodies on? She said, Mataka, it's cold in here.
Wow.
Man.
Wow. So that made you think, man, something ain't right with me.
And she sought you out, Miss Bruno.
Yeah.
Yeah, she sought you out and then she sent that information and so me being a black man from St. Louis, mental health, man, you got me mixed up. That's a synonym for crazy. Yeah. You hear me? I was all rejecting it right out the door, but the stuff kept occurring. And I wanted to see what was going on with me because unbeknownst to me, while I was undoing programming from one side, I was being programmed from another side. So while I was getting stuff out of me, I was still being impacted by the environment that I was in. And so I was like, okay, hold on for a minute. So I started running across the symptoms. Hypervigilance. That's me. I'm always an inability to feel safe, right? When I go in restaurants, I got to sit with my back to everything. I got to look. This is just me being safe. This is a thing that it's a survival skill that I learned. That exaggerated startle response. Like, I'm like, okay, what was that? Outburst of anger. Sometimes I get frustrated with things that I couldn't do, and it caused me to have low impulse control because I had not developed the skills from the experiences.
Hold on, Mataka. Hold on. You're getting into the symptoms.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, hold on, because we're gonna walk these symptoms off.
Yes, ma'am.
So, guys, as you come in, y'all share this stuff because we ain't gonna sugarcoat nothing. We just ain't. Like I said, somebody told me reentry. I mean, I was raw. My content was raw. Reentry is raw. And two, I want to say to Tosca, I see Andrew out there. Andrew, I need you. I need you on
the man, let me call. I'm finna
No. We're gonna spread this thing out. Because you and Andrew and Mr. Charles and all us in the same room, we're gonna spread this thing out. We're gonna almost make this as a series because people need to understand. So we're gonna go to Mr. Charles Williams, and after Charles Williams, I'm gonna give the definition of post-incarceration syndrome and the symptoms, and then we're gonna talk about the behaviors. Right,
Miss Bruno. Tosca is trying to get in.
Oh, there goes Tosca. Yeah, we got to let the therapist in the room. Hey, darling.
Oh man, you done put all these letters by your name.
Let her alone. Let her alone. So, Mr. Williams and I met via social media. He reached out to me almost 4 years ago. So, Mr. Williams, you want to introduce yourself, and you the OG in the room. So you want to introduce yourself, tell us how much time you did, and just share. And then, like I say, after Tosca, we're going to get into the definition and the symptoms, the behaviors. Now we got the therapist on deck, and she can tell us about the coping skills. What's necessary, what's needed. Because, like I said, that guy asked, what's the solution? Okay, so go ahead, Mr. Williams.
My name is Charles Williams. I was born and raised Fifth Ward, Texas, as a part of Houston. And as the name suggests, and most people that know anything about Fifth Ward, there was a certain type of representation that there had to be. I didn't get into crime until about the age of 14, and that's due to dysfunctional activities in the home. And I started running off from home because of certain things that was going on, and I guess caught up with the wrong group of people. But then I liked what they was doing. They teach you, how to steal or how to hustle or whatever, And so I said, well, I don't need no daddy and mama. I can do this here to take care of myself.
Wow.
And so at the age of 16, 17. My experiences with jailhouses and penitentiaries began. And I'll be 74 years old this year, and most of those years were spent in prison, in and out of prison. The last trip was 35 years flat. Mm. And so it's like the first part of it was like, 2 years here, 3 years there, blah, 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 and so I would go in and say, well, there ain't nothing but a cakewalk, I'll be back out on the street again, and so, and as you go through prison, you learn different things that you ought not learn. You learn how to, like Mataka said, defend yourself, to be always on, be prepared, to keep from getting prepared. And you do that because you also have to become like what? One of the big dogs. Either you're going to be the puppy or you're going to be the big dog. You see what I'm saying? And that is a do or die situation. Either you are or you ain't. But the main thing of it is that you learn things in prison that you think that you could do better than you did the last time you got out. And so I can say that this is the longest time that I've been out of prison in my entire life, since the age of 17.
Congratulations, brother.
And you know what? And the thing is, like I said, he sent me a message or PM or something about 4 years ago and said he wanted to talk to me, and he had he saw a video that I did on adverse childhood experiences. And so that resonated with him. And so we just clicked. We had that bond. And I remember when he was out for 9 months, he said, this is the longest that I have ever been out of prison. And then when he had hit that 1 year, he celebrated. And then recently, maybe I guess a couple of months ago. It hit 3 or 4 years, Mr. Williams, and he told me, he said, this is the longest. And the thing about, I thought that Mr. Williams, y'all, let's celebrate Mr. Williams.
That's big time, bro. That is.
And he told me one time, he said, he was telling me about the 35 years. So I thought it was just a total of 35 years. He said, no, 35 years this last time. So I'm like, wow. But I can honestly say, I've seen him do the work. I've seen him separate. He don't want to go to family. He didn't want to go hang out over here. I've seen him do the work. I mean, he does the anger management things. And so, Mr. Williams, if you're not proud of yourself, you should be extremely proud of yourself.
No doubt, bro. It's okay too, man.
I am so proud of him. Every party I have ever had, he has been in the party. So Mr. Williams is like family to me. He from Fifth Ward. I was born and raised.
My favorite rapper from Fifth Ward, Brad Jordan.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk to the therapist in the house, Miss Tosca. I fell in love with her the first time Mataka introduced
she did. She fell in love too. Oh, I'm gonna order her book. She's my shiro.
Okay, Miss Tosca, tell the people a little about you.
I can't really tell if you can hear me or not. Is there a lag on your side?
We can hear you.
Okay, on my side is super slow. I am Tosca Tolson. I am a mental health professional here in mid-Missouri. One of the primary groups that I have is a BIP, or a batterer intervention program. What that means is most of the individuals served in that program are mandated by the courts or probation and parole to do a domestic violence psychoeducational program. I also provide anger management services, therapy, and do various work. We do various work in the community here.
Okay, very good. And Tosca, I thought about you, and I said I was going to reach out to you because, again, this question that this young man asked last week, what's the solution? So my thing was this, and I sent an email to the founder. I said, to me, now y'all, this is me. He said, what's the solution? He had went to therapy. My thing is this, did he go see the right therapist? Mm-hmm. A lot of times when they go see a therapist and that's not the right one, then they stop because they think everybody, and my thing is this, I'm thinking, and Tosca, you can talk about this too, but I'm gonna get into all of that. But my thing is, I believe that when someone has had that pre-incarceration trauma, that incarceration trauma, that post-incarceration trauma, they need somebody who specializes in trauma, who's seasoned in trauma. That's just me, because like I saw Kevin went in that door, he came through that door, he said, nah, she ain't gonna be able to do it. She ain't gonna be able to help me. And then he went back the next week, and the next he said, nah, I ain't going back because she's not going to be able to help me. But he found a therapist that specializes in trauma, and she got to him. And so my thing is this is what I was thinking, because if somebody asks me what's the solution, we could talk about the problem all day long, but we got to come up with a solution. So my thing was this, you know what? I'm getting ready to network with me, get me a network of therapists, right? And if they do not know what post-incarceration syndrome is, we're going to bring them to the round table with the OG and Mataka and all of that. And we're going to have the conversation, because I do want to be able to provide these guys, point them in the right direction so that they can get the help that they need. That's the solution to me, is to get them in front of a therapist. And for those who are not ready, for whatever reason, concept of saying the therapist mean that they're crazy, we're going to debunk that. If you're not ready to see a therapist, okay, let's do this peer-to-peer support group thing. Mm-hmm. Just let's get them a place where they can talk, and they can talk about, and then the Matakas and the Charles and the Andrews can help these brothers, go through whatever they're going through. So I'm just going to talk about post-incarceration syndrome. I'm just going to give the definition. I'm going to give the symptoms, and then we're going to talk about the behaviors so you guys can know what this looked like. I've seen the institutionalization personality trait. That's what Mataka just talked about it. So for those of you who are new here, you're watching us on replay or whatever, post-incarceration syndrome is a cluster of mental disorders that occur in those who are incarcerated, released, most of being those who have spent a lot of time in solitary confinement. There's institutionalization personality trait. Y'all come with y'all pen and paper. We're going to send y'all to school. There's antisocial personality trait. There's social sensory deprivation syndrome. There's PTSD. And then there's substance abuse disorder. So Mataka talked about what the institutionalization looked like coming home, you know, with he in the 5-star restaurant with his prison badge on him, right? Institutionalized. One lady was talking about how her husband never cuts the lights off. He never cuts the lights off. He never, my light bill is going to be so hot. Ma'am, how long was he in prison? 25 years. Ma'am, 25 years he ain't had to touch a light switch, right? These are the things that we take for granted. And then we get mad because we have no understanding what institutionalization is, right? So I said, well, ma'am, he had to take what Kevin used to leave the cabinet door open and all the drawers, and I would just go back and close them, you know. And
man, it's so embarrassing, Miss Bruno, because I'm thinking about
this is my thing.
Now, when I look back at some of the stuff that I did,
this is what I want my brothers and sisters who are coming home and who are going through this. You went through what you went through, and as a result of that, then you have this mental disorders that's attached itself to you. My thing is this: there's also post-incarceration syndrome growth.
Yeah.
Right. And my thing is this: my brothers and my sisters who have come home, don't let nobody put you in no trick bag. Don't let nobody put you in no bag that I'm embarrassed. Embarrassment is a choice. You went through what you went through, and as a result, this is the consequences. Doesn't mean that you can't grow from this.
No doubt.
Don't be, I mean, I can say don't be ashamed. I can say don't be embarrassment, because for me, it's just a choice. It's just a choice. You guys have done that type of time. You come home, you're in a whole new environment. Okay, you got to learn. But you got to be willing to be open enough, transparent enough. Say, I struggle in this area. I'm struggling with cutting these lights off. Can you put me a note over here and remind me?
No, let me stop washing my underwear in the shower.
I heard that so many times.
Amen.
Yeah, that's what I said I was embarrassed about, because I'm coming home. I've been doing this. Hey, Brother Charles, let me stop washing these underwear. There's a whole washing machine and dryer up there.
So listeners, so form of institutionalization, right? So at what point did you stop washing your underwear in the shower?
When I was like, why am I even doing this?
Was it
what am I?
months?
Yeah, so you know, it took a cut. So actually, I think Erica said something to me, because when I watched them, I hang. Man, this stuff is crazy, dude. Hey, listen, I'm gonna hang them on the shower rail. Now I got these so they can dry. I ain't dry, Brother Charles. I'm trying to let these underwear dry.
Okay, try this on for size. Like I said, I made the choice to go to a halfway house.
Right.
When I got out, right? So I'm sitting in my room and I'm steady looking at my watch. And I say, damn, man, they ain't gonna call Chop. And so my roommate said, huh? I said, what time they call Chop around here? He bust out laughing. He said, man, you out. You go to eat when you want.
Let me tell y'all something. Y'all family members, y'all better
a symptom. That's a symptom of chronic sense of helplessness due to the suppression of lifestyle choices. When I go out to eat with people, I used to go out, that menu used to be so big. I tell people all the time, I ask somebody else, well, what you getting? I'm getting get me that. I want that what you got, because I was not like, it was overwhelming. I got 50 different hamburgers, 17 different fries, and 30 drinks. I'm like, hey, listen, that's too much. What you getting? That's what I want.
Yeah, and another form of institutionalization, this is one that I heard that was so sad, that the guy who went to the transitional home, and for 3 days, he just sit on side that bed until somebody just constantly walking past his door and asking him, man, why you just sitting there? Why you don't come out this room? And he said, I didn't know I could.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know I could. Institutionalization, personality trait. Andrew say facts. Institutional behavior is difficult to get undue.
So Mr. Williams, Mr. Charles said something when he started, and you made reference to it. He said that his life of crime was spawned by negligence in the home. So ACEs is abuse, neglect, household dysfunction.
Right.
So he had trauma before he had trauma. And so we live in communities where this trauma it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
AKA it's normalized. We don't even view it as trauma. It's just what it is. All along, like while I was in prison, I thought I was addressing some stuff in one area. In another area, I was being shaped, molded, groomed, and impacted by something else. That's how it is when we had that trauma as children. We don't even know it's trauma. This is just how it is in the hood.
Right, right. And now, excuse me, now since I am aware of that, when I see the parents, you know, just really going hard on these kids and all of this kind of stuff, it just tugs at my heart, because I said, they do not understand the traumatic experience, the traumatic experiences that they're having on this kid and what it can lead to. And by no means, we're not saying don't discipline your kid. However, there's some stuff that I'm like, man, if they really had an understanding of what trauma is and how trauma shapes an individual. Ignorant me telling on me, I had no clue what trauma was. It took Kevin and I going through all of this before I really started doing the research. And this is why, you know, when Kevin and I got divorced, I was like, no contact. You have, you know, just shut him down. Block, email, no contact whatsoever. And during that period, I just began to study trauma. And then I had to go to him and apologize. You know, it's not for me. Family members, hear me out. Hear me out. It is not for us to say that was then, this is now, get over it. Because we do not know how that experience, what that trauma did to him. So I said, you know, Kevin, I apologize to you, you know, for behaving the way I did, because I was ignorant to trauma. And so it wasn't for me to say that was then, this is now. People process trauma differently. So Ms. Colson, before we go on to the next symptom, can you just talk to us about trauma and the impact and how it just ingrains the brain and all of that?
Okay. So one of the best ways I've been able to describe trauma to my guys so that they understand it is that we know that all feelings are connected to a chemical reaction. And with trauma, we describe it as kind of like taking shots of liquor. So they used to say that when your fight, flight, or freeze kicked in, that only like adrenaline was released. Now the research is showing there's up to like 7 chemicals that are released when you are in fight, flight, or freeze. So I tell my people, if I had 7 shots of Absolute vodka or moonshine, and I tell you to drink all 7 shots of those alcoholic beverages and then tell you to function regularly, you're not going to be able to function regularly. This is how trauma interacts in the body. In order to get trauma out of your body, you have to do something. Since trauma is processed through all 5 of your senses, you kind of need all 5 of your senses to get the trauma out of your body. If I've been in a traumatic state for a long period of time when my brain is forming under this trauma, then I have to have a new foundation or build a new role for my brain to even know that I have options to respond in a different manner. So one of the things, like Mataka was saying, that I didn't even recognize I was traumatized. We've been processing in groups, and I think the question was, we had asked everybody, how has trauma affected you in your current relationships? What does that look like, or how's it expressed, or something like that? And a lot of times, a lot of my men will say, well, I haven't even been traumatized. And then Mataka will come back and say, well, have you had issues making decisions? Have you struggled with communicating your needs to your partner? And the guys will say, oh, well, I never thought about it that way. So just like you were saying, a lot of times we're operating, holding these shot glasses and walking around on a platter, and we're not even knowing it, because we've just become adept at navigating obstacles under duress, and it's eating your body up from the inside out.
Right, right. And this is another thing is, and even me, y'all, I sit here and I be in these books and I be on just researching. And the thing about it is, we just because we don't see our brain, we don't even consider how different things affect the brain. Mm-hmm. There's chemicals being released in the brain that will make you respond and react in a different type of way. And
our brains are being reshaped through neuroplasticity. Experiences are transforming us. Like Ms. I'm gonna say one thing. Okay. So Tosca pointed something out to me that I wasn't even aware of because my brain had been conditioned to function a certain way. When we do groups, sometimes I have to remember I'm a facilitator, right? And so she pointed out a couple of things to me when the conversation might have gotten a little bit tough, my behavior, right? Because I've been conditioned to respond. So after we identified it, she asked the people, like, what did you see? And she used to tell me this all the time. The first thing is my chest get bigger. You swell up. This is a defensive posture, but I'm unconscious of this. I don't even recognize this. She had been telling me that. And then when she asked the guys, what's the first thing you see? That's exactly what they said. But because I had been conditioned to function a certain way, dealing with conflict, relationships, and so on, it prompted a response that was a product of, I'm a product of conditioning. My brain functioned like this. And I didn't even realize it. And it's helping me to walk back some things too, you know, because we respond based on our conditioning. I don't see my chest swell up. I'm just doing what I do.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what, guys? And this is the type of conversation that's needed on the inside. These brothers and sisters on the inside needs to know, you know, what you are walking into when you walk out of prison. And that's my fight. That is my fight with these people, with these glorious reentry programs. And some of the same people who are in your programs are called faith-based programs. They calling me. And you done painted this glorious picture of what your program does. That's the issue I have with them, right?
Yeah, that's a disservice. It's a disservice and it's misleading.
Exactly it is. Exactly it is. And I say, you know, stop putting profit before people. Stop putting these grant monies to get some vans before you take that money and get them some mental health treatment. But this is the conversation that needs to be on the inside. And I am looking forward to the day. I think the opportunity with the DOC in Nevada last week was just one door that's been opened. But I am just believing God that we're going to get in these prisons and we're going to have these conversations because this is the type of information that's needed. So we're going to go to the second symptom. So we just finished institutionalization personality trait. Now, Mataka, Andrew got a comment down here.
I saw it about the chicken. Listen, you can't call no dude coming out of prison. So I'm gonna be graphic.
Go ahead.
Hey man, don't listen. You can't because it's common vernacular out here, and excuse my language for whoever watching. Listen, one thing I'm gonna say is, and brothers come home, we want to do good, we appreciate freedom, but we still operate under some conditioning factors that we've not been able to get out of ourselves. So please don't be calling these dudes bitches playing. Don't do that. Like that's a trigger word. So like the brother said, it's certain words and certain things that they say or do in prison that's degrading, dehumanizing, and emasculating. And it's a test, and they're gonna see. And so that you can't tolerate none of that. And so when you come home, after your brain has been shaped and you responded to stuff so long a certain way, when you come home, somebody say it, you're not gonna automatically be able to just cut that off. Well, that ain't what they mean.
Yeah.
When I went to the farmer's market, I had to do some positive self-talk when I first came home because it's so crowded and people bump your shoulders. Man, listen, that's a proximity violation in prison. Don't nobody walk that close up on you unless they're your friend or it's some static. I don't know these people. So when they bumping into my shoulders, I'm telling myself, you're not in prison. They don't know you. They're not tripping.
Wow.
You're not in prison. They don't know you. They not tripping. This is when I first come home though, right? Because I got an issue with people touching me. Don't touch me. right? Dudes don't be, yeah, I give my partners dabs and pounds, but people don't be bumping people all like that. You know, that's an issue, and it's a trigger, and it could cause a situation. And so, like, for me, the very first tools that I had to implement was in the midst of a real-time situation. I had to talk myself through it to get to the end.
Yeah. Okay, so and see, that is something that needs to be talked to. We need to talk about. Okay, so we're gonna come back. Antisocial personality trait. Antisocial. So a couple of weeks ago, I put a post up about antisocial. I just put a post up about all of the different symptoms. And this young lady reached out, 23-year-old, beautiful lady. And she said, young lady, and she said, now I understand. Because her loved one has been in prison. He came home and she just feels like, you know, he has missed so much times, so many years out of her life. And now she feels like, you know, he's standoffish and he doesn't, you know, interact. And so that's that antisocial deprivation, personality trait deprivation. What is it? But Tosca, can you talk to us about that, being antisocial, what that looks like and why that's so?
So antisocial is going to look, it can look different for different people, but most of all, it's going to be like a client had told me he's always waiting for something to happen. And so we processed, even if something happens, how do you wait? What if you got 20 good years in between something happening? It affects his business relationships. It affects personal relationships because he's always feeling like he doesn't fit in, feeling like he's not getting the jokes, feeling like he doesn't belong, on top of waiting for something to happen and not being able to have those relationships. He's recognizing that he is not a healthy partner, but also not knowing how to be a good partner. So then that causes more chaos because the things he's thinking he's placing on his partner, even though his partner doesn't mean him any malice. So that's going to be exhibited in multiple forms and fashion. It can then look like isolation, not wanting to go to gatherings, not wanting to go to on family trips, not wanting to be at the park for too long because a bird might pick your baby up. There's lots of different ways that can be exhibited.
So that was a direct shot against me.
So let's go to a question. Let's go to a question. How can I help my loved one while he's inside? How can I help when he's in? How can I help when he's in the free world? He won't be living with me, but I anticipate we'll spend time together. So how can she help him? Anybody?
So I'm a big advocate that language is and knowledge is power. So the more information you have, the more information you have to pull from and to decide how you want to react. So that means researching mental health. That means researching trauma. That means having those conversations of things that's bothering that person now. Being able to say, I have trust issues. Navigating, building that trust, and making sure that you both know that each other are present. There's not going to be one way because you're working through a process, again, where your whole body has been submersed in a traumatic environment. So it's going to take just as long to unpeel those layers. And one of the better ways that I've been able to describe it is like undoing a rubber band ball that's been knotted together throughout decades, right? So how do you take that rubber band apart and still have those rubber bands be able to be functional? And I'm sure Matai has more.
One of the things also is, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm listening.
One of the things we have to do is one of the things that I realized that was for me. So I often look at my experience and the experience of other people. One thing you said too, Ms. Bruno, is that a lot of people are quiet about this. Man, people used to reach out to me secretly, and by all appearances, they're successful, but they suffering it. Man, I had a partner on a restaurant used to call me and tell me, man, I'll be walking down the street or I'm driving, people recording me. They recording me. I said, brother, everybody with a phone? He said, everybody. Now, if you talk to him, you would never discern that from the conversation, right?
That's what I'm saying.
You would never, but he trusted me enough. Him and his wife actually reached out to me. Yeah, he trusted me enough. Then one thing that I recognize when guys spend a significant amount of time in prison, man, and they in these relationships and they coming home, man, don't be pressing these dudes to get a job a week after they home. right? Because now when you put this pressure on me and I feel like I got all these financial, I ain't even got my own feet up under me. And I come home to a massive amount of obligations, and it's over. I come from no obligations to a bunch of obligations. That is, I can't handle that.
But okay, and so this is the deal. So this is what Kevin and I had a little, and Kevin said to me, he said, you had me on crutches. You know, Kevin had $700 worth of bills a month. He moved up in here. We right at 3,000. And he said I had him on crutches because I took care of everything. You know, I had the finances. I just took care of it. Kevin didn't even know how much it took to sustain the household. And so my thing is this, and what he said was, you guys sit down, you know, and say, hey, how long do you think you're gonna need? But don't get too comfortable.
Yeah, you're gonna have to get a job. But if I come straight home after doing 20 years and you saying next week.
No, I'm not saying next week. And like I said before in the live, if you coming out and you talking about contact Miss Bruno for a job, Miss Bruno ain't gonna help you with no job. You just coming out. But if you say, Miss Bruno, I need to talk to somebody, okay, Tosca, we need to talk to somebody, right? Yeah,
and also that goes into having those conversations while you're incarcerated, because one of the things that we forget about is, yes, you've been incarcerated all this time. However, you have a partner that's been sustaining a home by themselves also the whole time. So unfortunately, there's a miscommunication because your partner won't tell, right? That partner hasn't had any help that whole time as well. So how do you have those discussions and come to an agreement or what that looks like before you get home? Because that person's been doing time on the other side as well.
Yeah, yeah. So Mr. Williams, let me ask you this, because you was at the transition home and then you moved into your own spot.
Right.
Right? You got away from there, you moved in. Was that, I know it was comfortable because you have your own place, but what about the responsibilities of taking care of your own bills, maintaining this, that, and that? Did you have any issues with that, or?
Oh, I had a bunch of issues. You know, it's kind of like, you know, hey, when I got out, like you say, I was in the transition home, and so I started feeling some kind of way when I had to pay so much money to live in a house with a bunch of hardheads, you know, that didn't want to clean up, put behind themselves or not. And I just started making preparations to find my own spot, you know. But the thing of it is, I had two mentors that helped me make that transition.
Yeah.
And I trusted them to look inside of me, you know, because I knew my problem did not come from alcohol or drugs. My problem arose straight up out of anger and hatred. And I had got to the point where I didn't even like myself. Yeah. But the thing of it is, I had two people while I was locked up that poured themselves into me and more or less pushed me to do something different.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like, I would always ask myself, why do I keep on doing the same damn things over and over and over? And because the result ain't changed yet. Okay, I used to burglarize. I go to prison for burglary. I hear all this talk about robbery. So I tried that when I get out, and that locked me up, you know, and it's just on and on and on. And I thank God that I never got to the point where as I became a serial killer. You know, I didn't experience that part of life. But I had that level of violence in me that I knew that if I didn't make a change, is that it wouldn't be too long before I reached that plateau. Wow. So when I got out to the halfway, out to the transition house, I said to myself, I told the house manager, I said, look, man, only thing I want to do is just be here just long enough while I get my foot up under me as the way they supposed to. I don't know how to pay no bills. I don't know how to fill out no income tax. I don't know none of this because I've never done none of that. And so, bam, something that came up, and it was talking about the childhood thing. That's why I reached out to you, Sheila, you know, because I experienced it. I know what that was, you know. And so, and being in this transitional house, I learned how to be more responsible to myself and to others.
Yeah.
I had to relearn how to relate to people because, man, I couldn't talk to nobody when I first got out. I didn't understand what they were saying. So I guess what? That's part of that anti-socialism. I sat back. I said, well, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to respond to that. What are you saying, man? Talk to me in English. Well, I am talking to you. No, you talking some other stuff. I don't know that. And so when I messed around and I made my move and I got my spot, both my mentors set me down and we went over about setting a budget for myself, how to pay these bills, and what I was going to have to do to continue.
Yeah.
I ain't never had no job 2 weeks, less than on 2 years.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And so, like, I
told
you what my plan was.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, God, He allowed me to get that Dodge Ram. You know.
Yeah. So when he first got out,
that Ram.
But yeah, so me and another, we had a session with him. And we was just asking him so we can help him map out his goals or whatever. And we said, what he said he wanted a Dodge Ram. We was like, okay, well, what's the next choice? You gonna get that Dodge Ram, but what is the next one? And so he got him other truck, but now he driving that Dodge Ram.
That big boy.
Yeah. And so, but the thing about it is our loved ones have to allow people to pour into your life. Ain't nobody trying to tell you what to do. We're trying to help you to stay out of prison. And that's one thing that Mr. William has done with his mentors. And he got me bugging in his ear. But I am so super proud of him. He goes to anger management class and it's mandatory. And he said not too long ago, you know, it has really helped him. It has really helped him. You know, so,
and that's because I wound up with a therapist that I didn't like. And I don't like. But I got the utmost respect for him, you know. And he causes me to actually focus in on thinking errors. A while, what was I thinking when I committed the crime? You know, we don't face that. Most of the time, people don't face that. But see, and then so like he started, it's kind of like, you know, life is like an onion. You start peeling layers off. And it took me back to where I focused in that where it all began was when I was 12 years old.
Yeah. I'm so proud of him, y'all. I am so proud of him. Okay, so now there's a question. Do you think therapy is necessary after serving many years in prison?
Yes. I'm gonna say it right off the top. Yes.
I say yes. Kevin said for him, and you know what, y'all, just every time I get an opportunity, Mataka, don't be smiling, because I already told you Kevin is my friend whom I was once married, and neither him or I are talking about remarrying.
Man, tell my brother I said hi. Hello. What's up, brother Kevin?
I have so much respect for him, y'all. This brother is so genuine and he is just so I just love him. But he said to me, he and I, after we had split, last time he was in here was June, I think, of 2021. But he said to me, he said, Sheila, he said, therapy for me will have to be a lifestyle. And for some it may, right? And some it may take just a few sessions, a few months or whatever. But for some, you know, and I think it's depending on how deep the wound is. the wound is and how traumatic it was and how you process it. Because somebody can't go to a therapist and just spill all of this out all at one time, right? So my thing is this: I say, yeah, just have an open mind to see somebody. And this is Mataka, Sheriff, and all of us right here. This is what I wanted to do, and I'm going to do. Because like I said to those guys, when you go to see a therapist, you interview her. Absolutely. It's okay to ask her questions. Ask her, has she, she have any clients that have been to prison before or whatever? Ask her questions. And so what I want to create a list of questions that they can ask. Mm-hmm. I do, because like Mr. Charles said, he didn't know how to talk to people. He didn't know. So that antisocial, I'm going to sit back. No, if we give them a list of questions to answer, I believe in pen and paper. And you sit there and you write out what she says or whatever, because this is the person that's going to help you to navigate through some things. So you want to know, is she qualified? Do I feel comfortable with her? Right? So I think it's okay to do that. Okay, so I would say yes, go to therapy. Tosca, what you say?
I was just going to say therapy right? Because therapy is not the end all fix all. When you're going to look for a therapist, I always tell my people, my job is for them to fire you. No good therapist should tell you what to do. So you don't go to therapy and they're going to tell you what to do to get better. They're going to help you navigate to see what it is that you need to set yourself up for success, right? Because there's not going to be one right answer. Also, having experiences, because you haven't had a lot of experiences, you're going to have to get out in the world and see what you like, see what your dislikes are. Go to the park, go to the movies, go out and try new things, go to the amusement park, go ride a canoe, go an arrow, whatever those things are, because having those experiences in conjunction with therapy, again, because your whole body was submerged in an environment and that's how the trauma was processed, you need to heal your whole body. You can't separate your physical from your mental. You need whole healing in order to have that optimal level of life.
Right. Y'all, and this is why I'm
just absolutely right.
Go ahead, Ms. Wade.
I say she's absolutely right. It was that even though that I had two mentors that was pouring into me, I still hadn't really experienced being in the crowds. Mm-hmm. And so somebody invited me to Discovery Green for a jazz concert on one Sunday. And the first time I went, I mean, hey, man, my head was just still doing this here, because it wasn't no walls to get around, and the trees that was out there, but somebody else had the trees. So I was sitting out in the middle of everybody, and, I was really uncomfortable, And so my person said, well, what's wrong? I said, oh, ain't nothing, I'm enjoying myself. I'm lying really because I'm on edge, I feel that the anxiety rising in me, and so we left. So she said, you know what? She said, I think you lying to me. We going back next week, And so we went back the next week, and I was really able, Tasha, to really enjoy that concert.
Yeah.
And it got me to the point where as Kairos had a weekend in the system in May, and I was invited to go. What surprised me was the way that the Department of Corrections was so quick to approve my volunteer status. Mm. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to go in for 4 days in the prison. I mean, I admit when I was driving up to the prison, I said, man, I don't think I could do this. I was trying to turn around and come back to Houston, I wasn't really planning on going in no penitentiary no more.
Yeah. And so go ahead,
when we got to the gate, one of the officers said, Charles Williams. And I turned around, looked, I said, yes, ma'am. She said, how long you been? And I told her, and she said, you know what? She said, I always knew you was going to make it. Mm-hmm. And it kind of done something to me, because as I went into the unit, it was so many guys that came up to me and said, man, we've been hearing about you. Keep it up. Keep up the good work.
Yeah. So, Mr. Charles, let me ask you this, because I'm one of your #1 fans. How do you feel about yourself? Because what I want family members to understand is, just because they have post-incarceration syndrome, there is post-incarceration growth, but you got to put the work in. And Mr. Williams has put the work in. He came out. I'm not going to stay with family members. This anger management class, he's consistent. He got, Mr. Williams, what you doing? Got to write an essay. He's doing what he's doing. He's putting in the work. So this is why he has been out 4 years, and he is actually doing the work, even the uncomfortable parts. Because we didn't talk, sometimes get lonely, whatever. But he is doing the work so that he can maintain his freedom. So I'm just going to post this up. What Andrew said, one mistake reentry individuals make is have more than one mentor. A mentor is one that guides you and points you in the right direction. Having more than one can leave individuals confused, because 2 mentors will have you going in 2 different directions, which is confusion. I think, Mr. Williams, were your mentors a husband and wife?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so they're on the same page. Pretty
much. All right. I had the 2 sets. There was 2 sets of mentors. One was the female and her husband, and one was a guy and his wife.
Okay.
All right. Miss Tony and her husband was my spiritual mentors. Russell and his wife was my physical and my mental mentors. Deal with everything, everyday life, And so I disagree with that, because everybody is more to being, how you say, transformed than just one way. Mm-hmm. You have to be transformed totally. And you got your spiritual and you have the natural, so the natural is there. And the spiritual is there. So your completeness is going to come from whichever one you feed the most. Whichever one, and it's all about choice. What choice are you going to make concerning your life once you get out here from prison? Think about it. I mean, hey, I have no desire to be in prison looking out. No more. No.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And so Miss Tony and her husband, Mr. Bob, they have always encouraged me to stay in my word. Stay in the Bible. We're not speaking about denominationalism. No, I'm not. I'm just saying, just be in the word. Russell and his wife always deal with my living. How am I living? What are your thoughts? What have you experienced this day? Christian always tell me, she'll text me and say, what you do yesterday. And so it's kind of like I have to give a verbal essay right quick off the muscle.
Freestyle.
Right. You got to freestyle it. And I like that. You know what I mean? Because it causes me to focus on what it is that I'm supposed to be doing.
And it's good for communication, effective communication, right? Instead of just shutting down because you don't know how to respond or whatever, keep them talking.
Right. Because people, I used to, when I talk to somebody individually and they go to asking certain questions and they start asking, they start trying to unpeel my onion, so to speak, then I more or less, I start shutting, I bag up, I shut down, and I get less responsive, because I don't want you knowing who the real me. Who is you, because I know you're going to take that and run with it.
Yeah. Just
to give you a good example, I had a lady last week we was talking and she was talking about relationship. And I told her, I said, I said, I would love that, but right now I'm not ready for that.
Hey.
She said, well, why? I said, because I don't know you. You know, I'm not going to give you that much power over me.
Okay.
Because I don't want you telling them people that I put my hand on you when I didn't.
Right.
So no, I'm not ready for that.
Smart. Okay, we got to talk. You ain't chilling about that one, but we got to talk.
Well, this just came up last week, you know.
Okay, well, we have to talk. We'll talk. But okay, so another symptom is social sensory deprivation syndrome, right? And this is what I've heard about people who have spent a lot of time in solitary confinement. You know, when it comes to being social settings, when it comes to people touching them, when like one lady said her husband had been out 3 years and he was still sleeping on the sofa. And he said, you know, that he had been in prison. He had been still a lot of time in solitary confinement. And so he just wasn't comfortable with with sleeping next to a body. And so for the sake of time, because I want to be respectful, the last one is substance abuse. And I think a lot of people, and I'm gonna ask you and Mataka this, a lot of people try to quieten that noise in their head. And so they just want to cover it up with the dope. Mr. John Newton was in solitary confinement for 19 months, told his wife that he came unraveled. So much so, you know, when he got out, he was trying different types of dope. And then they found him in his room in the boarding house. He had been dead for 6 days before they found him. He was just doing all of this, trying to quieten the noise in his head. So Mataka, Mr. Charles, like right now, I have a nephew did 14 years. I had 14 years. He's coming up, I think, on 6 years, whatever. And he has been in solitary confinement since last August. So this August, he's supposed to come out. And we got to see him video visit. And the first time that we saw him, we was here in my office and whatever. And everybody was like, oh, he looks so good. But I could look at him. I could look at him and say,
you know.
I was like, okay. I just looked at him. And so we had another visit a couple of weeks ago. And, you know, he lost a lot of weight and stuff like that. And I say, how your head? Now I'm good. You talking to Nana. How's your head? And he said, you know, sometimes on some days it get next to me. What I know, it closed up in a box for 24 hours a day.
I want to say I did the research, and they say physical brain changes can start to happen after 3 days in solitary confinement.
Family members, can you hear us now? System impacted citizens, do you realize that something happens to your brain? Something happens to your brain. And I think when we start to really, really deep dive and pull this stuff back and let them know, yeah, something has happened with your brain. So you have to do some things on purpose, intentionally, to, you know, to reintegrate back into society successfully. And Andrew said it one time on a live about trying to reintegrate by yourself. You can't do it successfully, right? And so, yeah, so I looked at my nephew this last time and I said, yeah. I could just see it all over his face. And that's one thing that, you know, we have to educate family members on, because I asked him, I said, have your little one ever been in solitary confinement? Some of them don't even know. And the one member, October the 19th, 2019, she said, all he does is sit in the car all night long, da-da-da-da-da. And I asked her, I said, had he ever been in solitary confinement? And she said, yeah, for 9 years. And 2 months later, she's found in the trunk of her car, and he had killed her. So this is why it's so, so important that family members understand. And when I say know what you're dealing with, I'm not calling your loved one a thing or anything like that. But I want you to understand, know what you're dealing with when you're dealing with post-incarceration syndrome. This is why it's so important that we continue to have these conversations, and we will have these conversations. And reentry is not pretty. And so we're on the other side of the fence. We're just on the other side of the fence.
You said something just so I was just thinking about something when you said that with all the skills and information and experiences we want to pour into people so that they can better navigate these situations. One of the things that you experienced, he was cool for everybody else. He felt you recognized him right out the door. And he felt trusted. I mean, he felt trust with you. And as a result of that, he was able to divulge information without feeling like it was going to be embarrassed or ridiculed or dismissed. So one thing I would love for family members to do in their efforts to support their loved ones, create a safe space.
Right.
Where people are not judged. Like, listen, if I feel, because it's hard enough for me to tell somebody I'm going through stuff, right? Especially when I've been in the penitentiary, I've been standing on my own. This is what I do. I'm gonna work this out because this is what I've been accustomed to doing. But as Drew said, as Adero said, like we can't do, and that's why this is a community situation. Re-entry is community, because if we are not psychologically and spiritually in a balanced place where we can navigate that, man, people who ain't never been to prison struggle to navigate the stresses of life. So if we don't have the right head space and the right heart space, and we constantly run into obstacles and we don't have the support to navigate that, what's going to happen is we're going to get discouraged. I'm going to revert back to what I know, and ain't nobody going to be safe. The property, none of that. So it's a community issue. So this is us learning on the individual level, but at some point we got to start moving up to these policy levels in such a way, right, till they remove these barriers that are in place that don't have a purpose. Some of them have a purpose, but they got, like, I've been home 10 years. I'm doing good. Why are you still holding this conviction over me when I'm trying to get this apartment? I make more money than you.
Right. Right.
And so if I ain't got no place to live, no matter how much money I make, right? Some people still bar me from staying in certain areas because of past records. No matter how many credentials I get, certain things I can't do because I'm a convicted felon. Man, I'm on the state advisory board for the Department of Mental Health, and there's certain things I can't even do because I'm a convicted felon. Right. Yeah. And so we have these barriers that stand in the way of people also coming into society. So for us, it's necessary to offer the support, know the skills, be able to create a safe space so they can decompress. So that way we can have some guidance when we hit these barriers in life, so we can know how to navigate them. Because if we don't, man, it's going to be an issue. And I ain't saying that nobody going to be in danger per se, but what's going to happen is I might do something to send me back to prison because I'm more comfortable in that environment. And then the family loses.
Mataka, like Ms. Bruno said, you've been in group long enough too, where we've seen it, and unfortunately, we'll be able to go and pull up the newspaper articles. The last young person that was suffering in group, and I knew he didn't have it, he ended up catching new kidnapping, rape charges, right? And so we see what happens when you don't have those supports, and people aren't ready to listen. And if you've seen that firsthand as well.
Yeah. And so this is the thing in closing, guys. You know, we're going to keep having this conversation, and I just want to bring new faces to the conversation. If there's anybody out here who's listening.
You got somebody on there now, Miss Bruno, Zaki Taylor. He was a young man when he got locked up. Young man, 15, 16 years old. I think he did 18, 20, 21 years. Been out for a couple of weeks. Very intelligent. Wrote several books and everything. He's somebody that we might need to bring on as a guest because he grew up in prison.
No problem. You know, I don't have no problem with nobody coming to the table. So yeah, so you know, maybe we can have him on the next one and have Andrew, but we're gonna keep having this conversation, you know. And you know what I think, you know, and my some of my posts in LinkedIn has been a little disruptive, and I'm good with that. Right? I'm good with that because I mean, like I say, I love these diplomas, the certificate, I love all that. But we got to learn to talk to those who are at home and they're struggling and they don't want to talk to because they think this is what reentry looks like. Reentry looks like I got to get a certificate. Reentry looks like I got to go through an entrepreneur approach. That's not all reentry looks like, right? So we're going to keep having this conversation again. If you are a family member, and you want to come and talk about your experience, do so. And my thing is this. There's over 1,500 women in the private Wife After Prison support group. Safe space. But my thing is this: at some point we got to come out. We got to come out and be willing to talk. Even if your loved one is home, maybe y'all can come talk together. But we cannot make contagious to anything where there's no awareness. Right? You want to, how can I help my loved one? Come on here and talk about it. I'm just saying, that's just me. But anyway, guys, it is 8:20. Thank you, Mr. Charles. Love you much, man. Love for you. You
shout out to you, brother.
Yeah, Mataka, you already know. And Tosca, I'm really serious. I want to do something where I build a network of mental health professionals who won't mind sitting in a group. We understand you guys cannot provide no counseling, whatever y'all disclaimer is, but just at some point we want to provide a safe space where individuals, whether they male, female, have been incarcerated and they just need to talk to somebody. I want to create that space like we had in the beginning. So we're going to be working on that. Mataka, you will not appoint me and Tosca to do anything. So yeah. But anyway, guys, and one thing I want to ask you, if you watch this on the replay, just put #replay. Go back and read the comments. Tosca has added some valuable information in the comments. And if you don't mind, share this out, like. And like I said, you know, when the more likes we get, Facebook tends to, you know, swim it up, take it upstream so other people can listen. We are going to keep talking about this. Wow. Andrew, I'm coming for you. We're going to decide whether we're going to do this weekly or bi-weekly. But however, we're going to keep doing it. All right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we're going to say good night. And again, thank you so much for joining us. And hopefully you'll join us on the next time too. Good night.
Okay.
Night.
Okay. All right, y'all. Let me end this.